Hello, everyone. Good morning to you. If you can hear me, kindly type in hi in the comment section. If you can hear me and you can see my screen, kindly type in hi in the comment section so that we can kickstart this. I actually had a terrible network issues here and we're just sorting it out. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, 3047 wrong bank. Okay, good morning. Thank you. Okay, Carrie, thank you for confirming that. Yes, that's what's on my screen right now. 937, hi, good morning. Okay, so let's quickly kickstart today. And first of all, I want to welcome you all to yet another beautiful session of Extreme Speed Live as with my humble self, Sheriff Daramola. I shall be taking you on a trading journey where we shall be looking at the chart, where we shall be evaluating the chart patterns, price actions, and we shall be using these parameters to decipher trading opportunities lining up for us during the New York session. In addition to this, if you have any commodity or you have any pair you want us to look at, feel free to drop it in the comment section and I shall try as much as possible to squeeze it into my schedule for today. So as usual, on the Monday mornings like this, we normally look at random pairs, after which we are going to look at the opportunities lining up for us this week, and then the subsequent days we shall be monitoring price action based on the pairs we have chosen today. So let's dive into the chart, and the first pair we are going to be deliberating on as usual is going to be the US oil. So on the US oil, the first scenario we want to be looking at is we want to look at how price action has been playing out on the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, what do we have? We have a very strong bullish trend line that has been holding price action since the beginning of the year. And we can see how that bullish trend line has been respected by price action over the course of the last 6 to 7 months. We saw a breakdown at this point, then price came back up into the $130 mark. Price came back down to do a retest of that bullish trend line, and we can see how price has continued to respect that bullish trend line within the month of April into the month of June, not until the later part of June that we saw the significant breakdown of that bullish trend line. Now, if we look at this from a technical perspective, let me zoom into what has been happening in the last 3 weeks thereabouts. If we look at the structure, the first thing we observe at the structure is that price action actually broke, significantly had a breakdown of that bullish trend line, that is with the bearish engulfing candle. And from a technical perspective, you want to expect price to come and do a retest of that structure, and then we expect price to come down to do a retest of that bullish trend line that was broken during the early days of this month, after which we might be looking forward to a bearish momentum that will send price crash to the downside, or we're probably going to see price moving to the upside from here. But that is not what it matters at this point in time, as we want to look at the structure here. Are we having potential opportunities for this week that projects a bullish momentum that is going to retest that bullish trend line that we identified here on the daily time frame? So what we want to be doing at this point is to scale down a little bit into a lower time frame, after which we want to look out for structures that aligns with a possible bullish momentum that will support price going up to do a retest of the structure. So that's the first scenario we want to be looking at. And then the other scenario we want to be looking at is, if we look at the structure since the mid of June, we were able to identify a bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs. Give me a moment. Let me show you what I mean here. We had this impulsive move to the downside, price respected that bearish trend line, respected it one more time, and we have this move. Then it came back again to respect that bearish trend line. So because of this, we have this uniform bearish trend line that we've identified here. And like I said, the first scenario we want to be looking at is our price is going to actually move to do a retest of that bullish trend line, or is there going to be a possibility where price is coming back to do a retest of this bearish trend line to push price to the downside from here? So these are the two scenarios we want to be looking at, and the only way we can do that is to scale down to a much lower time frame. So I want to scale down to, let's say, the 4 hours time frame, and let's see what the structures we have at this point in time. So on the 4 hours time frame, what do we have here? On the 4 hours time frame, if we look at what has been happening since in the last 1 week, we can see that the $91.90.50 area has been a demand zone in the past, and we saw this move after the impulsive move tested the $91 mark. Hold on a second, tested it here. We saw that bullish momentum right back into the bearish trend line, and we saw price come back into this area, and we are not sure if price is still going to go further into the demand zone we identified here, or even break down that demand zone at this point. So we don't know, or is this going to be a higher low that could send price continuing to the upside from here? That's also something we are not sure of. So in order to guide our action during the new week, I want to identify a key level that will guide our action. So if we bring out the line chart at this point, and we look left, we can see that we have a structure around here which has been a demand zone in the past, and at the same time we also have a structure here which has also been a demand zone in the past. So what I want to be doing at this point is to connect this level together, and these are going to be our key level for this week. And if we adjust this key level right back into I think the $95 mark. Let me see. I think $95.50 appears to be most appropriate at this point. Okay, so we have the key level at $95.50. So I want to label this for the sake of clarity, so that we have a visual clarity of what we're expecting here. So let's extend that key level out a little bit into, let's say, 320. Okay, so let's have something like this. So now going into the new week, we have a key level here that's going to be guiding our action. Now, one thing we want to be looking out for is this. If price continue to oscillate right above that key level at $95 mark, we want to be looking for a bullish potential from this area. Remember, if we look left, we can see that this area that we just identified here, that is the key level, at one point in time being a demand zone. We can see we had one here, we had a structure around here, we also had one around here, and then we had one around there before we saw this breakdown of that structure, and it appears price is right back above that level. So we want to see if this level is going to hold price supported during the New York session, so that we can join a bullish potential. So what I'll be advising at this point is that we should be very, very patient, as we want to see moves in such a way that price close above this level, probably with an engulfing candle. This candle is here to close. This candle is about how many minutes old now? I think about 3 hours 45 minutes old. So we still have around 15 minutes left for this candle to close. So I want to see this candle move above this level, and then we have an engulfing candle right here, after which we wait for price to come and do a retest of that key level at $95.50 area. We'll look out for structures on lower time frame. When I mean structures, I mean a reversal pattern. It could be your double bottom structure, it could be your inverse head and shoulder pattern, whatever that is. We look out for this pattern, then we take advantage of a bullish potential to the upside. And if price breaks above this bearish trend line that we identified here on the daily time frame, remember we identified the bearish trend line. Remember, let me show you, if you missed that on the daily time frame. Let's go back to the daily time frame. Remember, we identified this bearish trend line that has been holding price action since the middle of June. And one thing we want to be seeing is that if price breaks above that bearish trend line, then we have further confirmation that we actually going bullish on this one. So what I want to be doing here is this: if price breaks above, then if we have a retest of structure of that bearish trend line, then we want to add more position to our existing trade, as we should be aiming right above $105 as our take profit target at the meantime. And the reason why I'm aiming around this area for our take profit target is very, very simple. If we look left, we can see that this area had been a supply zone in the past, and we have to be very, very careful if price comes into this area, as we never can tell. Price could do a reversal pattern within that area to push price to the downside from here, and only if we see a break above of that supply niche, then we can be confident that we actually having a further trend continuation to the upside. So that is the first scenario we are going to be looking out for here on the US oil. That's the bullish momentum we want to be looking out for here. Let me go to the 1 hour time frame. I think it's most appropriate we use the 1 hour time frame to do this analysis. Okay, good. So that is what we are going to be looking out for. So we want to be waiting for price to do a breakout above the structure, after which a retest of that structure, that breakout retest of that key level at $95.50 with a reversal patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. So like I said, our take profit target is going to be around the $100 mark, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line we identified on the daily time frame, and that will dovetail to how many pips that is. Let's see, that's around over 500 pips to catch if price move as expected. Now, that is the bullish potential here on the US oil. Now, the other scenario we want to be looking out for on the US oil is the possibility that we could be having a selling momentum as well. Remember, we are at the beginning of the week, and one thing we always try to do here is to make sure that we put into consideration all the possible perspective that we might be seeing this week, so that we don't get ourselves in a dilemma when we are about to take our individual decision. And that is why I always try to give you all the possible scenarios that might probably arise during the New York session. So if we look at the structure we have here too as well, and considering the fact that we have been on a long-term bearish momentum, it is also very, very pertinent that we don't ignore the fact that price could actually continue to the downside from this area. So because of that, the key level at $95 mark still assists us to help to make that decision. Like I told you, if price continue to oscillate right below the key level at $95.50, we want to be doing a sell, and if price oscillates right above that area, we want to be looking out for patterns that will ensure that we are taking a bullish momentum. So with this downtrend scenario that has been trending since the beginning of the month, we want to also consider the possibility that we could be seeing a bearish momentum. Probably the bearish momentum could move right into this potential demand zone before we see that move to the upside. So if that is going to be the case, we should also be getting set and ready to catch that move if that is what is going to happen. So the first parameter I want to be using to guide our bearish buyers here on the US oil, if you look at the structure we have here, since price tested the $104 mark around the supply zone here, we can see that price has continued to find higher lower highs and lower lows. Let me give you a visual representation. You see lower low, we have a lower high, we have a lower low here, and we have a lower high, and then a lower low, a lower high, and a lower low at this point. So could this be a lower low at this point? We never can tell. That might push price to the downside from here. We don't know how that is going to be, but the structures we have is going to guide us going forward. So the next thing I want to be doing at this point is to connect the series of lower lows so that we can have a bearish trend line to work with during the New York session. So if we do that, bring out our line chart at this point and connect the series of lower lows, this is what we are going to be having here. So I would like to give this a dashed line. Yeah, good. And then we have, okay, that's very, very good. Very, very good. So now we have a structure around here now. We have a confluence, we have a key level, and we also have a bearish trend line sharing a confluence around this area, making this area a very, very, very sensitive area to look out for during the New York session. So what do we want to be doing here to take advantage of that bearish move? Well, one thing I want us to be looking out for is a reversal pattern. We want to see that structure is actually supporting that bearish move, and it could actually come in the form of a breakdown of that key level at $95.50 mark. Then we have a retest of the structure, which is also, it could be the retest of that bearish trend line or the retest of that key level, after which we look out for opportunities to join the decline from those points to this area. So this structure I'm talking about here that we want to be looking out for is most appropriate that we look out for the structure on a much more lower time frame. We could be using the 15 minutes or the 5 minutes time frame to look out for this pattern. So I'm right on the 15 minutes time frame right now, and we have seen the first and the second rejection of that level at this point. Hold on a second, let me show you what I mean here. So we have seen the first and second rejection of the bearish trend line. Now I want to see a breakdown of this key level at $95.50. We want to see something like this that would give us something that looks like a double top structure, after which we want to take advantage of a trend continuation at a breakdown of the neckline of the reversal pattern, if that is what is going to happen at this point. So if we are going to be having that selling momentum, where will our take profit target be? Well, I will be advising that we don't get too over ambitious on this one, as we might be seeing our take profit target around the $90.50 area and the $92 mark area, which will dovetail to about how many pips that is, as around 400 pips to catch if price moves in that direction. So this is what we want to be looking out for going into the New York session and even the new week as well. And remember, I said that if we have a breakup of that key level and a retest of that structure, in fact, a retest of the structure or the retest of that bearish trend line with patterns on lower time frame, like a double bottom structure or inverse head and shoulder pattern, should confirm that we are going bullish here on the US oil. So the most important thing I'll be saying here is we need to be very, very patient so that we can catch the move. Remember, we don't get too excited at the sight of a signal, as we want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of structure before we join any potential rally or decline during the New York session. If you have any questions, or you think there's an aspect in whatever I've discussed so far that you still yet to grab or understand, feel free to drop it in the comment section, as I shall be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to run through the chat to see if there are any inquiries in that regard. Hi, innocent babe, good morning. Okay, you want us to do GBPUSD? Okay, we are going to look at that. I think I have it in my pipeline for the week as well, so we're going to surely look at that after we take the UK oil. I trust you are good. As 1, 2, 3, namaste. Okay. All right. 038. Hello, good morning. Honamaya, namaste. Okay. It's okay, and it's a babe. All right, with the absence of no question, then I suppose we all understood what we deliberated here on the US oil. So I would advising that you be on standby to catch that move when it finally happens. So let's move on to the UK oil, where definitely we also be having a similar scenario with what we have on the US oil, and let's see what's happening on the higher time frame, and we shall be using that too. Okay, so on the higher time frame, it's very obvious that we are on a downtrend scenario here on the UK oil as well. As we can see, hold on a second, let me um I want to, okay, so we can see that we've been on a downtrend scenario since the early days of the month of June. And because of that, we were able to identify a descending channel here on the UK oil, which was respected, which has been respected for quite a while. Hold on a second, let me show you what I mean. So we have a downtrend channel, which has been respected until we saw the final breakout of that structure during the course of last week trading session. We saw the breakout of that structure here, and as soon as that breakout happened, we saw our price continue to rise into the $108 mark, and after it got into the $108 mark, we started seeing a scenario that looks more like a consolidation phase, though we had a breakdown of the $104 mark, but price is still caught up within a consolidation phase, hereby giving us a clue into the indecision that's actually present in the market at this juncture. So one thing for sure we all understand at this point, based on this consolidation phase we see here, is that the participants in the market are yet to make a decision, as they're actually waiting for an important catalyst that would either push price either way. Well, if we are going to be looking at this from a technical perspective, one thing for sure we should understand is that always, if we see a breakout of structure, we expect price to come back to do a retest of structure before we see the momentum drive to in the direction of the prior leading price action. So in this kind of scenario here, we have a bullish momentum, and then we saw a breakout of that ascending channel, that descending channel. We have something that looks like a reversal pattern sort of, because of this engulfing candle we saw here, and then there is a possibility that price could come back to do a retest of this level, or probably the $95 mark, before we start seeing the move to the upside from here. So that is a possibility we want to be looking at. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's a possibility we want to be looking at, and it's something we want to put in our arsenals to get ourselves prepared for the week. And then the other scenario is that price might actually respect that $104 level, and we continue to see price continue to rise from this area back into the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. So those are the two scenarios we want to be looking out for at this point, and how do we intend taking advantage of any potential opportunity as we head into the New York session. Well, the first thing first I want us to identify here is that we saw that we have a channel around here. We had a channel here. That's the first channel. We saw a channel here. We saw a breakdown of that channel here, and then price went again into a channel one more time. So we had a channel, we had a breakdown of that channel here. Hold on a second. We had a breakdown of that channel here. Price came into this and was caught up in a consolidation phase at this point. And how do we intend? So one thing I want us to be looking out for, I want us to identify this channel. Want to identify this channel out. Then I want to bring out my line chart at this point so that we identify the support level, which is our demand zone around this area. And in fact, I want to be using a blue for that one. Let's use a blue for that one. Then we should also identify the the resistance level as well. And then if we have that, we should have in something like this. So now we have a structure that we can play with now going into the New York session. So one thing I want us to be doing is this. So we still have this key level at $104, which has been serving us since last week. And I think it's still going to serve us for this week, as we are going to be using this to decipher how the direction price action is going to go at. So we have a channel already. We have a resistance level at the $102.50 mark, and sorry, a support level here, and we have a resistance level at the $105.50 mark area. So going into the New York session, one thing we want to be looking out for in form of a signal is a breakout of the structure, either a breakout or a breakdown of that structure. So the first scenario is if we have a breakout of the structure, that is, we have an engulfing candle that take price action out of this channel right to the top. Remember, we are not getting too excited at the sight of a signal, as we want to wait for further confirmations in the form of a retest of structure. That is, price comes back into the structure. It could come as far as the key level at $104 mark, or probably the resistance level here, where we want to be looking out for a reversal pattern on lower time frame. You could go down to your 15 minutes, your 30 minutes time frame, your 10 minutes time frame to look out for double bottom structures, inverse head and shoulder pattern, whatever reversal pattern analysis. Then we look out for confirmations to join the rally into the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame here. So that's going to be around the $122 mark area, which will dovetail to about how many pips that is. That's going to give us around the 1,600 pips they're about to catch here on the UK oil if price moves in that direction. Now, the other scenario we want to be looking out for here on the UK oil is the possibility that price could be doing a downtrend scenario. And remember, the key level at $104 is our yardstick during this week, as if price oscillates right above that level, we want to be buying, and if price oscillates right below the $104 mark, we want to be selling. But we are not just going to sell outrightly or buy outrightly, as we want to wait for signals and confirmations, which I've explained to you in regards to the bullish bias I was looking at. So for the bearish momentum here, what we want to be looking out for is a breakdown of that channel. The channel here, we have the support level here at $102.50 mark. So I want to see a breakdown of that level, giving us a signal that we are actually out of the channel. That means we've had a sense of direction based on that signal. But remember, we are not getting too excited at the sight of a signal, as we want to wait for confirmations on our lower time frame, like a 50 minutes time frame, 30 minutes time frame, depending on whichever one you use. We look out for a retest of structure, that is, price comes back to do a retest of that resistance level, of go as far as retesting the key level at $104 mark, after which we look out for patterns on our lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the downside from here. So where will our take profit target be if we are going to be doing a selling momentum here? Obviously, if we look at the structure we have here, when I explained to you earlier, I said price broke out of that descending channel here. So we expect price to come back to do a retest of structure before we see that trend continuation to the upside. So one thing I want us to be looking out for is a retest of this level around the resistance level of this descending channel here, which and one thing for sure, one thing we should also take into consideration is that if we look left, we can see that this area at the $95.50 mark at one point in time being a demand zone. So one thing I want to be saying here is we don't want to be too over ambitious, as we want to be using that area as our first take profit target zone, at least for the meantime. And if we do have a breakdown retest of that level, then we want to be adding more position to that trade, a breakdown retest of that level. So the first profit target will be around the $95 mark area, or $95.50 or $96 area, which will dovetail to how many pips that is. That's around 700 pips thereabout, at least, to catch here if price moves in that direction. So this is the scenario we are looking out for on the UK oil. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section. If there is any place whatsoever in the last few minutes I've spoke about the UK oil that you don't understand, you can drop a comment in the comment section and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So this is the scenario we are looking out for here on the UK oil. If you have questions, kindly drop it in the comment section. So we will be moving on to the next pair right now, and I want to be talking about the pair Innocent Babe introduced to us here this morning, and that's the GBP USD. So on the GBP USD, let's see what's happening here. So I would like to take it from a higher time frame. Let's see what structure is giving us from the beginning. So let's go as far as the daily time frame. Let's see how price action has been playing out since the beginning of the year. Hold on a second. Let me do a cleanup of the structure that we have here so that we have a clearer perspective into, so that I can explain to you afresh of what my expectations are here. So if we look at what is happening here on the daily time frame, it is obvious that price action has been on a downtrend momentum, as we can see since the beginning of the year, and I was able to identify a bearish trend line, which, as if you look at how it has happened since I think the later part of last year, we saw how this trend line was being respected. We saw the first rejection of that trend line, then we saw a breakout of that trend line, then price respected it in form of a support level, then price came back up, respected it in the form of a support level, then we saw an outright breakdown of that level in April, then price came back to respect it as a resistant level in May, and then we saw we saw that huge expansion that pushed price right into the 1.17600 level during the last week trading session. And since price tested this level last week, we begin to see a scenario that looks like prices finding higher highs and higher lows at this point, which looks more like a reversal pattern at this point. However, if we look at the structure and we look at how price has been trending since the beginning of the year, we want to see that I agree that this bearish trend line has been a major determinant of price action, as price is walking around that bearish trend line. So what is going to be our expectation? Are we going to see price come back into that bearish trend line in the form of this, and then probably we go see a pattern that supports a downtrend continuation from here? Or are we going to actually see a breakout of that bearish trend line, a retest of structure to push price to the upside from here? And the third scenario is, are we going to be seeing price probably continue to the downtrend from this area? So these are the three scenarios we want to be looking out for during the New York session today. So how do we take advantage of this move when it finally happens? So let's scale down to a much lower time frame in the form of a 1 hour time frame, and let us look out for structures that we can be using to take advantage of any opportunity lining up for us during the New York session today, or probably this week thereabout. Now on the 1 hour time frame here, if we look at what the structure has been giving us since the beginning of the month, I was able to identify a bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs at this point. Since the beginning of the month, price has been on a strong bearish move. We can see how price has continued to respect that bearish trend line, giving us a scenario of how strong the sellers are on this market. But during the course of last two trading sessions, we saw an outright breakout of that bearish trend line here, giving us a signal that the buyers have actually come in to the market, and we don't know how that is going to happen. And one thing for sure we observed is that as soon as we saw that breakout of that bearish trend line, we saw the breakout of that bearish trend line here. Hold on a second, what's happening here? We saw the breakout of that bearish trend line. Price was caught up within a consolidation phase as price continued to juxtapose between the 1.20300 level and the 1.19200 area. During the course of last week trading session, we saw how this area has been holding price, giving us a further confirmation of the indecision that is currently in the market at this point. Now, with the indecision phase that is happening here, then definitely we want to be patient enough to catch an impulsive move. So we don't know how long this indecision phase is going to happen. Price has been consolidating within that area. I think how many pips move between the two levels? We have around the 100 pips approximately within the two, between this level and this level. And one thing for sure, we should also put into consideration that this area has been a very strong supply zone since the first week of this month. That's been a very strong supply zone. So I would like to label this area. Let's give it a label for the sake of clarity so that we can see what we are talking about here. And I would like to give this, okay. So we have this area as our supply zone. As anytime price comes into this area, we continue to see multiple rejections as price move towards the key level at 1.19200 with over 100 pips. So is that same thing going to happen here? We don't know we don't know if that is what is going to happen here this week. That price is probably going to respect that supply zone and push price to the downside. We don't know. But one thing we should I was able to consider is I was able to find a trend line here. We saw a breakout of that trend line within this area, and I'm of the opinion that we could be having a bullish momentum. But with that bullish momentum will only come if we see a signal. And what signal are we going to be looking out for? Now, this is what I want to be looking out for this week. I want to see an outright breakout of the supply zone. That is, we see an engulfing candle taking out all the selling position around that area. Then that will give me a signal. Then remember, we don't get too excited at the sight of a signal, as we want to wait for further confirmation in the form of a retest of structure. It could be a retest of the supply zone at the 1.2 level or this area. But one thing, most important thing we want to be looking out for is a reversal pattern. It could be your inverse head and shoulder pattern. It could be your double bottom structure. Whatever pattern is, we want to look out for this pattern to join the rally to the upside. And if that finally happens, then we want to be having our take profit target right along that bullish trend line I shared with you on the daily time frame earlier, which is around the 1.23 level. And that will dovetail to how many pips that is. We should be having at around between 250 and 300 pips to catch if price plays in that direction. So one thing for sure I want to be saying here is we want to be very, very, very patient to see how price action plays out. Now, in addition to what I said so far, if we look left here, our price started from the 14th of July here. We can see that we have a higher low at this point, and we want to connect that series of higher low and make that our the second parameter that's going to be guiding our action during the New York session. So we have a bullish trend line here, a temporary bullish trend line here that is going to guide our action going forward. So we want to be taking a bullish potential right above that trend line. Let me give this a green, okay, and let me make it a little bit thicker so that it will emphasize what we're actually looking out for during this week. So this is what we have here on the GBPUSD. So that's the first scenario we're looking out for. We're waiting for a breakout of that supply zone, taking out all the selling opportunities here. Then we look out for confirmations in the form of a retest of structure. Then we could join the rally to the upside from there. Now, the other scenario is this. If we now see a breakdown of this bullish trend line, that is, price breaks down that bullish trend line. Hold on a second, let me hide this. So if price breaks down that bullish trend line, what happens? Then this tells us that probably price is about to take the long-term momentum it has been holding since the beginning of the year thereabout. And one thing we want to be looking out for is this. Remember, we are not getting too excited at the sight of a signal. We want to wait for confirmations in the form of a retest of structure, and the retest could either come in form of a rejection of that bullish trend line, or we could see price come back into the supply zone before we look out for patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the downside. And if that is going to be happening, that is, if we see that confirmation price breaks down that bullish trend line, we see a retest of structure around this area with patterns on lower time frame that supports that trend continuation to the downside, then I want to suggest that we should be having our take profit target at around the 1.18 area. And the reason is very, very obvious. If we look left, we can see that this area has been a demand zone in the past. We want to see price come back into that area, and if price actually comes into that area and breaks below that level, then we want to know that, okay, we are going for the bearish. Then we want to wait for a retest of structure to add more position to our existing trade. But for the meantime, we should just aim at around the 1.18 area, which will dovetail to about how many pips that is. That's about 200 pips at least to catch here if price moves in that direction. So this is the scenario we are looking out for on the GBPUSD. So I was able to give you two scenarios: the bullish potential, that is, if we are going bullish on this one, we want to see price break out of that supply zone, do a retest of that structure before we want to join the rally to the upside with a take profit target at around the 1.23 area for this week. However, if we have a breakdown of that bearish trend line here, or that bullish trend line rather, a retest of structure should give us the signal for that bearish move that we are looking for. So this is what we are going to be looking out for this week, and that starts during this New York session. Let's see how price action plays out during the New York session, and that will determine where we are going to be going. So to make our job easier, I will always advise that you screenshot my screen so that you can use that as a reference point when you're about to make your own individual decision on this pair. So I hope I made myself clear, innocent babe. If you have any questions whatsoever or any clarification whatsoever, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. I hope innocent babe is still around. Masan, good morning everyone. Okay, 314, hello, how are you? Okay. All right. Innocent babe wants gold. Okay, I will look at gold too. We'll look at, I think we have a similar scenario with what we have on GBPUSD in gold, but we will look at it. Okay. All right. All right. In the absence of no questions, I want to assume that okay. I'm glad you're clear. All right. Thanks for the confirmation. You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's look at gold. I think we should look at gold, I guess. Then that could probably be our last pair for today. But if you have any pair in the house, you can drop it in the comment section. Let's see if we can still squeeze that into what we have here. So moving on to the next pair, now we want to be talking about the gold pair. Hold on a second. Yes, okay. So on the gold too, we have almost the same the same scenario with what we have on the GBPUSD, but I would like to go to the daily time frame so that I can explain to you from the beginning how we got to where we are today. So on the daily time frame, it's obvious that we have a bullish momentum drive as price action has been respecting that bullish trend line since God knows when. I think 2020. Okay, you have seen price respect that bullish trend line, and at no point in time did we see price break below that bullish trend line here on the daily time frame. And one thing we now observed was that during the course of the early days of this month, that is, I think June/July, we saw an outright breakdown of that bullish trend line, giving us a clear into a possible shift in momentum on the gold. Are we going to be having a downtrend continuation from here? We are not sure yet, But one thing we all understand that since price tested the $1,680 mark, we begin to see a momentum that looks more like a reversal pattern on the lower time frame during the course of last week trading session, and we're of the opinion that there are two possibilities that we could be looking out for. I think there are three possibilities that we could be looking out for here on the gold this week. The first scenario, which is obvious, is that we expect price, considering the fact that that bullish trend line has been holding price action for some time since 2020, we expect price to come back to do the retest of that structure, and after which we might be seeing a momentum that's pushing price to the downside from there. That's the first scenario we are looking out for. Then the other scenario is we could be having price come back to do, if we look at this structure I have here, I was able to identify this bearish trend line since the beginning of the month of March. We saw our price has respected this bearish trend line, and I was able to also identify another resistant trend line since mid-June, which has been respected too before we saw the breakdown of this bearish red trend line here. So there is a possibility that we could have price come back into this bearish trend line, the resistance level here. We look out for patterns that will push price to the downside from there. Or are we going to be having an outright downtrend from this red bearish trend line here? So those are the three scenarios we are going to be looking out for. So one thing I want to be doing now is to go down to a much lower time frame where we shall be seeing things more clearly and using those parameters we find there to take advantage of any potential opportunity lining up for us this week. Excuse me. Before I scale down to the 1 hour time frame, let's look at what's happening on the 4 hours time frame. Yes. So on the 4 hours time frame, I hope you still remember that this bearish trend line I shared with you on the daily time frame, this two bearish trend line, we have something that looks like a channel here. We have this move here, price respected this resistance level of the channel before we saw an outright breakdown of the channel during the course of the early days of this month. And one thing we saw, as soon as price got to this level, it appears we have a reversal pattern. We have two ways to which you can look at it. We have the horizontal reversal pattern here, and we have the trend reversal pattern. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We have this reversal pattern here. We saw the breakdown of this bearish red trend line here. Then price respected it, respected it again. Then we saw this scenario. We saw something that looks like a breakout of that trend line. So for me here, this is more or less like a reversal pattern at this point. Let me identify it for you to see what I'm talking about. So this looks more like a reversal pattern to me, and we have the neckline here. And one thing I want to be looking out for is a breakout of the structure, a retest of the structure to give me further confirmation that we are going bullish on this one. So that's the first scenario I'm looking out for. That's the first reversal pattern. Let me hide this so that we can have a clearer picture. Then the second reversal pattern is this around here. Then we're looking for a breakout of the structure. We are looking forward to a breakout of this. Hold on a second. We are looking forward to a breakout of the structure, retest of structure to push price to the upside from here. So you can see that we have a confluence already. And if we look left, we can see our price action has been respecting this $1,720 mark before we saw the breakout of this area. So going into the new week now, I have a very strong key level at $1,720 mark, which are going to be my yardstick going forward. So what does our key level do for us? You all know what it does. What it does is it guides our action, and what it says is if we have price oscillating right above that key level, we want to do a buy. We want to anticipate a buy potential opportunity. And if price oscillates right below the key level, we want to anticipate a bearish potential opportunity. So now that we have the scenario here, we have a key level, we have a bearish trend line. How do we take advantage of this move? So for the bullish potential here on the XAUUSD, one thing I want to be looking out for, we already have a breakout of the structure, but I want to look for significant breakout in the form of an engulfing bullish candle. And if that happens, I want to see a retest of the structure which also shares a confluence with that bearish trend line, after which I want to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. What I will be saying here is our first take profit target should be, hold on a sec. Sorry for the break in transmission. I'm sorry. Okay, so where were we? So we're expecting the breakout of this area. We want to see an engulfing candle break out of that structure. We look out for a retest of structure. We look out for reversal patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. So like I was saying, our take profit target in the meantime should be the resistance level of this descending channel at least. And that will dovetail to how many pips that is. That is around 3,000, 4,000 pips to catch here if price moves in that direction. And one thing we want to be looking out for is we want to see how price is going to relate with this area. So if price gets into this area, we want to see if price is going to do a reversal pattern to push price to the downside from here, or we are going to see a breakout of that structure. Then price does a retest, then we want to be adding more position to our existing trade with the aim of take profit target at around the $1,820 mark, which also shares a confluence with the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. So that's the first scenario we want to be looking out for. And then if price comes into this area, the resistance level, if we see a reversal pattern here, we want to join a selling momentum here. Now that's the second scenario. Then the third scenario is if price is going to respect this bearish trend line, this red dotted tick line here, if price is going to respect that bearish trend line in such a way that we are going to be having a bearish trend, then I want to see price do a breakdown of this key level, this neckline, this key level at $1,720 mark. We want to see a breakdown of that level. We want to see price come back to give us a confirmation that we are going bearish in the form of a retest of the key level at $1,720 mark, or probably the bearish trend line here, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside from this area. So this is what we are going to be looking out for the XAUUSD this week. We have an opportunities for selling momentums based considering the fact that we are on a long-term bearish momentum. We can't ignore the possibility that we could be having a bearish move this week. However, I was able to share with you the potential bullish opportunities that can come up during the week. So I will advise that we remain steadfast and be on standby to catch this move. And you can as well screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your own individual decision on the gold. And okay, where will our take profit target be for the gold? Well, the first thing I will say here is this: let's not be too over ambitious when we are taking a sell here, because if we look left, we can see that we have a structure around here, which has been a demand zone in the past. And because we have that structure there, then we want to be having our first take profit target around that area, which is around the $1,680 mark area, and that will dovetail to how many pips that is. That's around 3,700 pips to catch here if price moves in that direction. And if price now breaks that level and does a retest of that level, then we could be thinking of adding more position to our existing trade on the gold. So this is the scenario we are looking out for here on the gold, and I hope I made myself very clear. Innocent babe, you have any question, or is anybody in the house have any question or further clarification needed? Feel free to drop it in the comments section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. All right, Nicole from Latvia, how are you? Mr. Starlin, how are you? Good morning. Okay, in the absence of no question, I would let's do a quick recap of what we talked about today so far. So the first pair we shared today was the US oil, where we were explaining. I was able to give you a scenario into the possible opportunities that's lining up for us this week, and we had how many parameters here? We have two parameters to guide our action going forward. We have a key level sitting at right $95.50 mark, and then we have this bearish trend line here on the US oil, and we said we had two pictures here. The first picture is that we should be expecting price to do a breakout of this key level, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line here, a retest of structure, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to support a trend continuation to the upside from here. With a take profit target at around the $100 mark, $100, $101 mark area, which will dovetail to about how many pips? Around 500 pips to cash here if price moves in that direction. So let's see how price is going to play out if it moves in that direction. Then the other scenario we want to look out for is if we have price come back down to do a breakdown of that key level, and I was able to do this on a lower time frame. I think we went to the 15 minutes time frame, I guess. Yes, I think so. Yes, on the 15 minutes time frame, I was able to look at this for you. And one thing I said here on the 15 minutes time frame is that, and I think structure is already lining up in that direction. I said if we see the first rejection of this trend line and price comes back down, we see a second rejection of this trend line, which has already happened, then we want to wait for confirmation in the form of a breakout of that key level at $95.50 area, a retest of structure, then we can join the decline to the downside on the US oil. Now, where will our take profit target be? Our take profit target, like I said, should fall right within the potential demand zone, which we identified here at around $91.50, $92 area, which would dovetail to how many pips? Around 350 pips to catch here. However, if you don't want to be too over ambitious on this one, you can put your take profit target at the previous support level, which is around the $93 mark area around here. Hold on a second. Around here, $93 mark, which will give about how many pips that is. That is around 200 pips to catch here. So that is that on the US oil. Then we moved on to talk about the UK oil, where we expecting two scenarios as well on this one, and we're able to identify a key level that will guide our action during this week at around the $104 mark, and we saw this consolidation phase here, which we later identified with this resistance level here at $105, and we have the support level here at $102 area. So what we are looking out for is a breakout of that channel. So if we are going to be seeing a bullish momentum, then we want to see a significant breakout of this channel in the form of an engulfing candle closing right above this area. then price comes back to do a retest of this resistance level or the key level at $104 mark, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame that would support a trend continuation to the upside. And if that's going to happen, then our take profit target should, at least for now, be at around the $116 mark, or probably as far as $123 mark, which is, if we look at this, the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame, where I think price is probably going to test before we see that downtrend continuation here. Now, the other scenario we are looking out for here on the UK oil is that we could be seeing a breakdown of this key level or the channel here in the form of a breakdown, retest of the key level at $104 mark, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the downside. And where will our take profit target be on a long-term perspective? We're actually looking at the resistance level here at resistance level of this area at $92 mark, which is we saw the breakout of the structure here, and we expect price to come back to do a retest of this level before we see the bullish momentum. So if we are having a selling opportunity here, then we look out for that move to the downside from that area. So that is what we are looking out for in the UK oil. Then we went ahead to do something on the GBPUSD, where I was able to explain to Innocent Babe, who introduced us to this pair today, and we were able to identify a parameter that will guide our action. The first one is this bullish trend line here. After connecting the series of higher lows since the beginning of last week trading session, we're able to connect this higher low, giving us that bullish trend line. So what we want to be looking out for at this point is that if we are going to be seeing a bullish potential here, remember we have a supply zone at 1.2 level, which has been holding price resisted, as anytime price comes into this zone, we normally see that bearish move to the downside from here. You can see we have that move to the downside from here. So one thing we want to see is I want to see an outright breakout of that level, that is price action takes out all the selling positions here. Then that gives us a signal that the buyers have actually come into the market. Then we want to wait for confirmation in the form of a retest of either the supply zone or the bullish trend line, after which we look out for patterns in lower time frame to join the rally to the upside on here. So this is the scenario we are looking out for on the GBPUSD. Then the other scenario we are looking out for is if this area continue to hold price resisted, that is we continue to see selling niche around this area, then I want to look out for breakdown of that bullish trend line, a retest of that trend line of that structure to join the decline to the downside. So for our take profit target for the buy opportunity, we want to aim at the major resistance level, a major bearish trend line on the daily time frame, which we identified. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. On the daily time frame, we had this bearish trend line here. So that would be our take profit target zone for this week, 1.23 area. That is if we have a bullish momentum. Then the other scenario is if we are going to be having a selling momentum, we want to see a breakdown of this bullish trend line, retest of short, then price comes into the 1.18 area as our take profit target. Then we went ahead to share something on the XAUUSD, where we also have a scenario we're looking out for. We have a structure at the key level at $1,720 mark, and we had this bearish red trend line, which is going to be serving as our yardstick going forward. Then for the bullish potential here on the XAUUSD, we want to see price do a significant engulfing candle right above here, then a retest of either the bearish trend line or the key level at $1,720 mark to push price to the upside from here. So in the meantime, our take profit target should be at the resistance level of this bearish trend line, which is at $1,760 mark. And then the other scenario is if we are going to be having a breakdown of this key level at $1,720. So if we have a breakdown of that level, remember we are not getting too excited, as we want to see further confirmations in the form of a retest of either the key level at 1720 or probably the resistant level, the bearish trend line, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. So for this one, I said we shouldn't be getting too excited, as we want to have our take profit target at $1,680 mark area, after which let's see how price relates with that zone before we now think of adding more position to our existing trade. So this is the scenario we are looking out for here. On the pairs, we're able to talk about 3 pairs today. We talked about the US oil, the UK oil, the GBPUSD, and the XAUUSD. So let's see how this this pair plays out during the New York session. And I remember, we don't get too excited at the sight of a signal. When we see a momentum, we see a move, we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for price action to give us further confirmation before we join the momentum drive that we've already seen. So on this note, I would like to call it a day. Thank you very much for being around with me here. I really appreciate every moment I had with you guys, and I hope to see you guys same time tomorrow. Remember, 11 a.m. West African time, 10 a.m. UTC. So thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck during the New York session, and bye bye.